Hello everyone. Welcome back to the video on my Storytime channel, where I read books from the Left Behind series, Left Behind the Kids series. So today we're gonna read chapter 15 of Left Behind, the first book Left Behind of the Left Behind series. The first book of the Left Behind series, chapter 15, on page 263. One of the first messages on Buck's answering machine was from the flight attendant he had met the week before. "Mr. Williams, this is Hadi Durham," she said. "I'm in New York on another flight and thought I'd called to say hi, and thanks again for helping me make contact with my family. I'll wait a second and keep jabbering here in case they're screening your calls. It would be fun to get together for a drink or something, but don't feel obligated. Well, maybe another time." "So who's that?" Steve called out as Buck hesitated near the bathroom door, waiting to hear all the messages before getting to the shower. "Just a girl," he said. "Nice. Better than..." "Just a girl," he said. "Nice? Better than nice. Gorgeous. Better call her back. Don't worry." Several other messages were unimportant. Then came two that had been left that very afternoon. The first was from Captain Howard Sullivan of Scotland Yard. "Ah, yes, Mr. Williams. Hesitate to leave this message on your machine, but I would like to speak with you at your earliest convenience. As you know, two gentlemen with whom you are associated have met with timely devices here in London. I would like to ask you a few questions. You may be hearing from other agencies, as you were seen with one of the victims just before his unfortunate end. Please call me." And he left the number. The next message had come less than half an hour later and was from Georges Lafitte, an operative with Interpol, the international police organization headquartered in Lyons, France. "Mr. Williams," he said in a thick French accent, "as soon as you get this message, I would like you to call me from the nearest police station. They will know how to contact us directly, and they will have a printout of information on why we need to speak with you. They will know how to contact us directly, and they will have a printout of information on why we need to speak with you. For your own sake, I would urge you not to delay." Buck leaned out to stare at Steve, who looked as puzzled as Buck was. "What are you now?" Steve asked. "A suspect? I'd better not be. After what I'd heard from Alan about Sullivan and how he's in Todd Cothran's pocket, there's no way I'm going to London and voluntarily put myself in their custody. These messages aren't binding, are they? I don't have to act on them just because I heard them, do I?" Steve shrugged. "Nobody but me knows you heard them. Anyways, international agencies have no jurisdiction here. You think I might be extradited if they try to link you with either of those deaths?" Chloe didn't want to stay home alone that evening. She rode with her father to the church where Bruce Barnes met them and gave them another video. He shook his head when he heard about the break-in. "It's becoming epidemic," he said. "It's as if the inner city has moved to the suburbs. We're no safer here anymore." It was all Rafer could do to keep from telling Bruce that replacing the stolen tape was Chloe's idea. He wanted to tell Bruce to keep praying, that she must still be thinking about things. Maybe the invasion of the house had made her feel vulnerable. Maybe she was getting the point that the world was much more dangerous now, that there were no guarantees, that our own time could be short. But Rafer also knew that he could offend her, insult her, push her away if he used the situation to sick Bruce on her. Push her away if he used this situation to sick Bruce on her. Push her away if he used the situation to sick Bruce on her. She had enough information, he just had to let God work on her. Still, he was encouraged and wanted to let Bruce know what was going on. He supposed he would have to wait for a more opportune time. While they were out, Rayford bought items that needs to be replaced right away, including a TV and VCR. He arranged to have the front door fixed and got the insurance paperwork started. Most importantly, he armed the security system. Still, he knew neither he nor Chloe would sleep soundly that night. They came home to a phone call from Hadi Durham. Raver thought she sounded lonely. She didn't seem to have a real reason to call. She simply told him she was grateful and for the dinner invitation and was looking forward to it. He told her what had happened at their home, and she sounded genuinely troubled. "Things are getting so strange," she said. "You know, I have a sister who works in a pregnancy clinic." Rayford said. "They've mentioned it. They do family planning and counseling and referrals for terminating pregnancies." "Right. And they're set up to do abortions right there." Hadi seemed to be waiting for some signal of affirmation or acknowledgement of that he was listening. Rayford grew impatient and remained silent. Hadi seemed to be waiting for some signal of affirmation or acknowledgement that he was listening. Rayford grew impatient and remained silent. Anyway, she said, "I won't keep you. But my sister told me they have zero business." "Well, that would make sense given the disappearances of unborn babies. My sister didn't sound too happy about that." "Hadi, I imagine everyone's horrified by that. Parents are grieving all over the world." Parents are grieving all over the world. Hadi, I imagine everyone's horrified by that. Parents are grieving all over the world. But the woman my sister and her people were counseling wanted abortions. Rayford groped for an pertinent response. Yes, so maybe those women are grateful they didn't have to go through the abortion stuff itself. Rayford groped for a pertinent response. Yes, so maybe those women are grateful they didn't have to go through the abortion itself. Maybe. But my sister and her bosses and the rest of the staff are out of work now until people start getting pregnant again. I get it. It's a money thing. They have to work. They have expenses and families. And aside from abortion counseling and abortions, they have nothing to do? Nothing. Isn't that awful? I mean, whatever happened put my sister and a lot of people like her out of business, and nobody really knows yet whether anyone will be able to get pregnant again. Rayford had to admit he had never found Hadi guilty of brilliance, but now he wished he could look into her eyes. Hadi, I don't know how to ask this, but are you saying your sister is hoping women can get pregnant again so they'll need abortions and she can keep working? Well, sure. What is she going to do otherwise? Counseling jobs in other fields are pretty hard to come by, you know. He nodded, feeling stupid, knowing she couldn't see him. What kind of lunacy was this? He shouldn't waste his energy arguing with someone who clearly didn't have a clue, but he couldn't help himself. I guess I always thought clinics like the one where your sister works consider these unwanted pregnancies a nuisance. Shouldn't they be glad if such problems disappear, and even happier except for the small complication that the human race will eventually cease to exist if pregnancies never happen again? The irony was lost on her. But Rayford, that's her job. That's what the center is all about. It's sort of like owning a gas station and nobody needing gas or oil or tires anymore. Supply and demand. Exactly. See? They need unwanted pregnancies because of their business. Because that's their business. Sort of like doctors wanting people to be sick or injured so they have something to do. Now you've got it, Rayford. After Bucket shaved and showered, Steve told him, I was paged a minute ago. New York City detectives are looking for you at the office. Unfortunately, someone told them you would be at the plaza with Carpathia later. Brilliant. I know. Maybe you ought just to face this. Not yet, Steve. Let me get the Carpathia interview and get that piece started. Then I can extricate myself from this mess. You're hoping Carpathia can help. Precisely. What if you can't get to him before somebody gets to him? Before somebody gets to you? What if you can't get to him before somebody gets to you? I've got to. I've still got my Oreskovich press credentials and identification. If the cops are waiting for me at the plaza, maybe they won't recognize me at first. Come on, Buck. You think they aren't onto your phony ID by now after you slipped out of Europe with it? Let me switch with you. If they think I'm with you, you trying to pass yourself off as Oreskovich, then that may buy you enough time to get in to see Carpathia. Buck shrugged. Worth a try, he said. I don't want to stay here, but I want to see Carpathia on Nightline. Want to come to my place? They'll probably look for me there before long. Let me call Marge. She and her husband don't live far away. Don't use my phone. Steve grimaced. You act like you're in a spy movie. Steve used his own cellular phone. Marge insisted they come over right away. She said her husband liked to watch his MASH rerun at the time, MASH rerun at that time of night, but that she could talk him into taping it tonight. Buck and Steve saw two unmarked squad cars pull up in front of Buck's apartment building as they climbed into a cab. It is like a spy movie, Buck said. Marge's husband was none too pleased to be displaced from his favorite spot in his favorite show, but even he was intrigued when Nightline began. Carpathia was either natural or well coached. He looked directly into the camera whenever possible and appeared to be speaking to individual viewers. Their speech at the United Nations, Wallace Theodore began, which is sandwiched between two press conferences today, seems to have electrified New York, and because so much of it has been aired on both early evening and late night local newscasts, you become a popular man in this country seemingly all at once. Carpathia smiled. Like anyone from Europe, particularly Eastern Europe, I am amazed at your technology. But isn't it true, sir, that your roots are actually in Western Europe? Though you were born in Romania, are you not by heritage actually Italian? That is true, as is true of many native Romanians, thus the name of our country. But as I was saying about your technology, it is amazing. But I confess I did not come to your country to become or to be made into a celebrity. I have a goal, a mission, a message. And that's nothing to do with my popularity or my personal, but it's not true they just came from a photo session with People magazine? Yes, but and is it not also true they've already named you their newest, sexiest man alive? I do not know what that means, really. I submitted to an interview that was mostly about my childhood and my business and political career. I was under the impression they do the sexy man coverage in January each year, so it is too early for next year and too close to this year's. Yes, I'm sure, Mr. Carpathia, that you were as thrilled as we were. Yes, and I'm sure, Mr. Carpathia, that you were as thrilled as we were over the young singing star who was so named 2 months ago, but I regret to say I was not aware of the young man before I saw his photograph on the cover of the magazine. But sir, are you saying that you are not aware that People magazine is breaking tradition by, in effect, unseating their current sexiest man and installing you in his place with next week's issue? I believe they tried to tell me that, but I do not understand. The young man did some damage to a hotel or some such thing, and so you were a convenient replacement for him. I know nothing about that, and to be perfectly honest, I might not have submitted to the interview under those circumstances. I do not consider myself sexy. I am on a crusade to see the peoples of the world come together. I do not seek a position of power or authority. I simply ask to be heard. Oh wait, message comes through the article in the magazine as well. You already have a position of both power and authority, Mr. Carpathia. Well, our little country asked me to serve, and I was willing. How do you respond to those who say you skirted protocol and their elevation to the presidency in Romania was partially affected by strong-arm tactics? I would say that this is the perfect way to attack a pacifist, one who is committed to disarmament, not only in Romania and the rest of Europe, but also globally. So you deny having their business rival murdered 7 years ago and using intimidation of powerful friends, America, to usurp the presidency authority in Romania? The so-called murdered rival is one of my dearest friends, and they mourn him bitterly to this day. The few American friends I may be influential here, but they could not have any bearing on Romanian politics. You must know that our former president asked me to replace him for personal reasons. But that completely ignores your constitution's procedure for succession to power. But that completely ignores your constitution's procedure for succession to power. But that completely ignores your constitution's procedure for succession to power. But that completely ignores your constitution's procedure for succession to power. This was voted upon by the people and by the government and ratified with a huge majority. After the fact. In a way, yes. But in another way, had they not ratified it, both popularly and within the houses of government, I would have been the briefest reigning president in our nation's history. Marge's husband growled. This Roman kid is light on his feet. Romanian, Marge corrected. I heard him say he's a full-blood Italian, her husband said. Marge winked at Stephen Buck. Buck was amazed at Carpathia's thought process and command of language. Theodore asked him, why the United Nations? Some say you would have more impact and get more mileage out of appearance for Senate and House of Representatives. I would not even dream of such a privilege, Carpathia said. But you see, I was not looking for mileage. The UN was envisioned originally as a peacekeeping effort. It must return to that role. You hinted today, and hear in your voice even now, they have a specific plan for the UN that would make it better and which would be some help during this unusually horrific season in history. I do. I did not feel it was my place to suggest such changes when I was a guest. However, I have no hesitation in this context. I am a proponent of disarmament. That is no secret. While I am impressed with the wide-ranging capabilities, plans, and programs of the United Nations, I do believe, with a few minor adjustments and the cooperation of its members, it can be all it was meant to be. We could truly become a global community. Can you briefly outline that in a few seconds? Carpathia's laugh appeared deep and genuine. That is always dangerous, he said, but I will try. As you know, the Security Council of the United Nations has 5 permanent members: the United Nations, the Russian Federation, Britain, France, and China. There are also 10 temporary members, 2 from each from 5 different regions of the world, which serve for 2-year terms. I respect the proprietary nature of the original 5. I propose choosing another 5, just 1 each from the 5 different regions of the world. Drop the temporary members. They have 10 permanent members of the Security Council, but the rest of my plan is revolutionary. Currently, the 5 permanent members have veto power. Votes on procedure require a 9-vote majority. Votes substance requires a majority, including all 5 permanent members. I propose a tougher system. I propose unanimity. Unanimity. I beg your pardon? Select carefully the representative 10 permanent members. They must get input and support from all the countries in their respective regions. It sounds like a nightmare, but it would work, and here is why. A nightmare is what happened to us last week. The time is right for the peoples of the world to rise up and insist that their governments disarm and destroy all but 10% of their weapons. That 10% would be, in effect, donated to the United Nations so it could return to its rightful place as a global peacekeeping body with the authority and the power and the equipment to do the job. Carpathy went on to educate the audience that it was in 1965 that the UN amended its original charter to increase the Security Council from 11 to 15. He said that the original veto power of the permanent members had hampered military peace efforts, such as in Korea and during the Cold War. Okay, so this is part 1 of reading chapter 15 of Left Behind, number 1, Left Behind. Take care, everybody. Another video from my Storytime channel.